We entered Detroit in search of urban agriculture. We didn't know what exactly we would find, but as we went along we learned about more than just farming in an urban environment. We learned about community, and gained a deeper level of respect for just what exactly that means for Detroit. We learned what Detroit really has to offer. The goal of urban farming is to eradicate hunger while increasing diversity, motivating the local community, and optimizing unused land for the production of food and alternative energy. I quickly discovered that there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer in Detroit's community gardens, so I decided to help out Earthworks' Capuchin Soup Kitchen gardens.
Okay, so where are we right now?
We are on the east side of Detroit, behind Gleaner's Food Bank. That's the Gleaner's Food Bank, largest food bank in southeast Michigan. Been around for about 30 years, and we're back in there. We've got about 8 lots behind their piece of property that we're on.
A Rutgers University study showed that the average New Jersey community garden plot produced approximately $500 in vegetables during an average growing season, at an initial value average cost of only $25. Our urban farmers gain a sense of empowerment and well-being when they have access to local food and a greater control over their food system. In 2005, urban farming began with 3 gardens in Detroit. Now, in 2009, we have the equivalent of 600 gardens across the country and abroad, providing fresh produce for an estimated 50,000 people. The average distance food travels to get to your plate is 1,500 miles. In addition to being healthy for you and your family, locally grown food is healthy for the environment because it reduces fossil fuel use. The Garden Resource Program Collaborative was formed in 2003 to support urban agriculture practices throughout Detroit. The collaborative partners include the Greening of Detroit, Michigan State University Extension, the Capuchin Soup Kitchen, Earthworks Garden, and the Detroit Agriculture Network. The Greening of Detroit serves as the fiscal agent for the partnership, providing fundraising services, staffing, and program coordination.
Well, right now folks are mulching some elderberries and roses that both will go into jam that we'll make with volunteers. Some elderberry and rose hip jam. But we got, there's black raspberries going right here, some black berries growing. Those are, got all some, here's a gooseberry right here. So there are tons of different small fruits that we're doing, and we just finished mulching around apples and pears, plums, cherries, and peaches that probably won't ever get sold. They'll probably just be stuff that folks will chow down on, mostly with our youth program. And then most of the food that we grow goes in the soup kitchen, so that's kind of what dictates it. But right now we're harvesting radishes and carrots, lettuce, spinach, sugar snap peas will be ready probably by Saturday. The fresh garlic's starting to come in. We've planted all our early cabbages. Kale's just about ready to come in. And then the first eggplants and tomatoes got planted last couple weeks. And we're about to put in peppers and cucumbers and squash, winter squash this weekend.
Each year, the Garden Resource Program supports over 200 community, family, and school gardens, all producing food for Detroit neighborhoods. These gardens are currently producing around 100 tons of food each year, and the program is growing on an average of 20% annually.
How does this all this run? Just by user donations and things like that, or like where does the money come from to operate this?
Well, the majority of so we are a program of the Capuchin Soup Kitchen, so it comes out of their general budget, and the caps are pretty unusual in that almost all of their funding is from individual donations. You know, they've been in Detroit as a presence since 1883, and the kitchen itself has been around since for over 80 years now. So they have a long history, and this is just one aspect of what they're doing, and we're a very small part of their budget.
The greening of Detroit is playing a leading role in promoting urban agriculture practices citywide. They're helping Detroit's home and community gardeners to grow their own food by providing guidance, soil testing, equipment, seeds and starter plants, compost, and other resources. Workshops and training programs provide educational opportunities for gardeners, offering practical skills and techniques to increase participant success in their farming efforts. They also provide opportunities for urban gardeners to connect with each other to share resources and experiences.
Yeah, I'm planting all kinds of different fruit trees here, and in the end they'll grow up, blossom fruit, and that'll go to help the soup kitchens and area co-ops. There's so much abandoned land in Detroit. There's, I heard a statistic, there's 40 square miles of just abandoned lots in Detroit, and so you got to use the land for something, and putting these farms here is great. I mean, it helps livens up the community, it reduces crime in the neighborhoods. It's just something that's, you know, really good for Detroit. It might just help to bring it back.
Beyond the aesthetic value gained when vacant lots are reclaimed, urban agriculture can play a significant role in combating hunger and improving nutrition for Detroit families. And that got me thinking. With all of these abandoned buildings and vacant lots, many Detroit residents see the worst, when in reality it is these very same open spaces right in the heart of downtown Detroit that show the most promise and lend themselves towards the realistic opportunity of being changed into urban agriculture. In this way, Detroit can be seen as being a pioneer among large cities. Increasing green sustainability and community relationships is something that urban farms have the potential to produce immediately. People shouldn't look at Detroit in shame. It should be viewed as a city with intact urban ruins and vacant lots, which can eventually transform this food desert into an oasis of fresh, organic, community-grown food. It is exactly this reason why Detroit is a leader when it comes to urban agriculture.
I think part of the appeal of it versus being in a more isolated area is that there's that, one of the real interests for me is the development of community of it. A lot of folks would claim that since we have so much vacant land in the city, we should just sort of clear it out and change it into farmland, which isn't something I'm really interested in seeing. I really see it as being a catalyst for community redevelopment of sort of addressing what are the needs of us as humans and trying to make those all available to us in the city.
When he says that urban farms can be a catalyst for community redevelopment, I think this is probably the main goal which many urban farming activists hope to perpetuate. It is exactly this hope of community redevelopment linked together with urban agriculture that still remains to be seen in Detroit. There have been attempts in the past to re-envision Detroit's abandoned urban ruins, but in my opinion some of them may have been misguided and uninspired. Shown here is the old Michigan Theater, a beautiful building that could have been revitalized or used for many reasons other than just as a parking garage. But I guess it's somewhat understandable, without the positive influence of something like urban farming behind the scenes to motivate the direction of this renovation.
A connection to our food is something that's really important. I think a connection to the natural world is something that's very important. And in some ways cities have been designed to divorce ourselves of that. And that's part of the appeal of urban agriculture. But there's some other things as well beyond that. There's obviously the fact that a lot of urban core areas are very low income, don't have access to good healthy food, and so this is a really cost-effective, simple approach towards getting access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And it really takes away from sort of the charity model of just folks having things given to them. It gives them the opportunity to do it themselves instead of others for them. Additionally, there's this opportunity to create these community spaces where oftentimes we find that children don't go to the same schools, folks don't go to the same churches, there's not a lot of community centers where folks come together. And so this is sort of the opportunity to create a space in which community can be built. It's also, in terms of as a for-profit item, It's very close to the urban markets, but it's also really close to nutrient sources, of that there's a hugely underutilized nutrient, just a plethora of, whether or not it be leaves or kitchen scraps, but we can really expand it beyond that to looking at small industries of, for instance, the Eastern market, where a huge amount of wholesalers are getting rid of vegetables that aren't fit for market, or breweries. The list goes on and on. When we really start thinking about where the nutrients are in the city, and recognizing that we have easy access to nutrients, easy access to markets, it's a real win-win.
Throughout my experiences volunteering for the Capuchin Soup Kitchen, I've really learned that locally grown food strengthens our local economy. Buying local food keeps your dollars circulating in your community. When it's grown in Detroit, produce keeps dollars in Detroit and helps support families in Detroit. The greening of Detroit guides and inspires others to transform miles of public and private open space, including some of Detroit's 60,000 vacant lots, into usable, valuable resources. They have helped their planting partners to create hundreds of green spaces, including playgrounds, pocket parks, vegetable gardens, and perennial gardens throughout the city. There does need to be another step of progression in the urban farming movement. Something needs to take place for urban agriculture to be a true catalyst for Detroit. Maybe that is simply the awareness of what urban agriculture is and what it aspires to be.